What do you need to say to get a really high band score for IELTS speaking? In this video, I'm going to show you some sample Band 9 answers, and I think you'll be a little surprised by how simple they are. In part 1 of the test, you'll be asked some pretty easy questions on everyday topics. These questions will be conversational in nature and also quite personal. They will mostly be about you and your life. Now let's look and see how we could answer a common part 1 question. Yes, I do like having plants in my house, but actually at the moment I don't have any. This is because I just moved house, but in my old apartment I had cacti, some flowers and an avocado tree. So what was so good about that answer? Well, for a start, I've fully answered the question and given a little detail. I've said enough to let the examiner judge my score for vocabulary, grammar, for fluency, and for pronunciation. I've not said too much, but I also avoided saying too little. Yes. You don't really need to say too much for this. Even one long sentence or two shorter sentences is fine. Here I answer the question with yes, and then I've said that I don't have many plants. I went a little further to explain that I used to have some because this allowed me to use the words cacti and avocado tree, which shows some vocabulary that's specific to the question. There's nothing wrong with saying more than that, but remember that the more you say, the more mistakes you will make and the more pauses there will be, reducing your score for, say, grammar and fluency. So for part 1, try and keep it short and sweet. Now we come to part 2, and this is where it starts to get difficult. In part 1, the questions were quite simple, but in part 2, you're going to be asked to describe something, and you'll have to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You cannot predict the question that you will get, but there are some common topics that we can see here. Obviously, some of these are easier than others, and it totally depends on what the cue card actually says, and you'll have to read it carefully to make sure that you know that. A cue card that asks you to describe a website, for example, could ask you to describe many different kinds of website, like these. Let's take this cue card as an example. You will have 1 minute to look at it and think about your answer. You can make notes if you wish to, but don't try to write more than a few words. Once your minute is up, you have to talk for about 1 to 2 minutes. Here is my sample answer to this cue card. The most useful website that I know is undoubtedly YouTube. YouTube is a video streaming service that is about 15 years old, I think. It's accessible from almost anywhere around the world, and it has billions of videos from lots and lots of different people. You can stream videos on all different topics, and if you want to, you can make videos and upload them to share with other people. What's interesting about YouTube to me is the fact that it changed from being this collection of short and silly videos like cats doing funny things or people playing stupid pranks on each other into this really amazing collection of media. There are videos telling you how to do almost anything. You can go in there and learn all kinds of amazing things. Also, big TV companies are putting out content just for YouTube, and there's so many professional YouTubers now that make these really high quality, amazing videos that are really entertaining to watch, and they've built up fan bases of tens of millions of people. So it's really changed our world, I think. Personally, I use YouTube about once or twice a day. Every day at lunchtime I will log into it and I'll watch a video about photography so that I can improve my photographs. I really like watching these YouTubers explain how to use a camera better, how to find places to take good pictures, and how to edit photos in Lightroom or Photoshop. I think that this is why YouTube is so useful to me and to many other people. People from all over the world nowadays can go on it and learn things from experts that they just didn't have the chance to do in the past. So it's really opened up education and opportunities for people, as well as the people that are making these videos that can have a job and actually earn a good income by doing it. For this part of the test, try to avoid speaking too quickly. I know when you're nervous, you're more likely to speak very fast, but if you do, you will say everything that you wanted to say in less than 1 minute, and that is a big problem. Try to cover all the points on the cue card. You don't need to cover them equally. In my answer, I only briefly said what YouTube is and how often I used it, because I didn't think it was important to say much more than that. But you should try to cover everything. Finally, this is your chance to show that you can speak English very well. You have more chance to talk than in part 1. Don't try and use really long, difficult words or you won't impress the examiner. Just speak clearly and naturally and you will get a high score. Finally, we come to part 3 of the speaking test, and this is the most difficult part. It's difficult because the questions here are a little abstract. They're harder to answer than the other questions, and you have to talk for much longer than you would in part 1. Sometimes these questions are difficult just to understand, never mind to give a good answer to. And so, before I show you my answer, I would like to explain what you can do if you don't get the question that's given to you. For example, let's look at this question. At what age should people retire from work? I've asked this question to many different students and they always tell me pretty much the same thing. In my country, people normally retire about 65, but some people keep working until they're 70. Clearly, they did not hear one important word in this question. That's the word should. If you don't hear something or you don't understand the question fully, it's okay. You can ask the examiner to repeat or explain. Here's what you can say if you want them to repeat the question. I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. Can you repeat the question, please? And if there's a word or phrase you didn't understand, you can ask the examiner to explain it or rephrase it for you. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the word retire. Could you rephrase the question, please? Remember that the examiner is just there to assess your English skills. And if you're able to communicate with them perfectly, even if that just means asking to repeat a question, then this is a good sign that you have good English skills. Everybody goes through those moments where we didn't hear something or we misunderstood something. But if you can convey that perfectly to the examiner, this will help you. Now let's look at the question again, and I'll give you my sample answer. Well, that's a difficult question actually, because I suppose it depends on the person and on the job that they're doing. For a start, some people just aren't cut out for retirement at all, and I think they should keep working as long as they possibly can, because retirement could be bad for their physical and mental health. For other people, their job might allow them to work for a long time, such as teachers. You could be a very good teacher at age 70 or 80 years old, for example. But then there are some labor-intensive jobs that really you should not be doing after the age of 60. So I guess it just depends on who you are and what job you're doing. When I'm teaching people how to answer part 3 questions, I tell them to think about it in 3 different stages. First, answer the question directly. whether that's yes or no, or giving a number or a name or a place. Second, you're going to explain that. And third, you can give an example or a recommendation. It depends completely on the question, and it could be different, but if you think about it in those three ways, it's actually much easier to give a developed answer, and that's important. For my answer to this question, I did not say you should retire at 65 or 70 or 80. I said it depends. It depends on what job you do, what kind of person you are. So my explanation then gave some different reasons for that, and then I gave examples of people that do labor-intensive work or teaching, or people at 60, people at 70. So my answer was very comprehensive because of that. Notice that I didn't use any crazy vocabulary. I didn't say there is a plethora of anything, or any other IELTS cliches or big words that are used incorrectly most of the time. I just used simple, correct, and appropriate vocabulary. Finally, I did not speak too quickly here. For part 3, it is also important that you breathe and speak slowly. In this case, the reason is that you need to do a lot of work with your brain and send the information to your mouth so that you can explain things clearly. If you talk too fast, then you will not be able to give a developed answer. Even a native speaker struggles with that a little bit. Okay folks, that's enough of our speaking lesson for today. If you're looking for help with your IELTS writing, you can check these 2 books. They're both written by me. This one is about your grammar skills. It can help you learn all the basic grammar that you need to succeed in IELTS writing. It's also pretty useful for speaking too, because you've got to have good grammar. And this book is all about how to write a perfect essay. It tells you everything you need to know. It's broken down by chapters into the 4 marking parts. That's task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. These books are really helpful, and they will help you to get a better score for your writing test. Okay, if you've got any questions, you can put them in the comment box down below. You can find a link to these books in the description down below as well. And I'll see you again next time with another IELTS video.